Morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar hosted by the Cyber Incident Response Team Division as we celebrate National Cybersecurity Awareness Month and mark the 10th anniversary of the CERT Division. We are excited to begin this week's series of activities under the theme Education and Youth, and with today's session focusing on digital literacy for youth. My name is Daniel Dona, a Tier 1 Security Operations Center Analyst at the CERT Division, and I will be your moderator for today. The CERT Division remains committed to strengthening Jamaica's cybersecurity resilience through public education, collaboration, and national response initiatives. Today, we turn our attention to our young people, the next generation of digital citizens. Their involvement is vital as we work to build a more secure and digitally aware Jamaica, where education, responsibility, and innovation drive a safer online future. With that in mind, it is my honor to introduce our distinguished guest speaker for today's discussion. We welcome Ms. Colleen Morris, Senior Anti-Human Trafficking Officer at the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Person. In her role, Ms. Morris supports the National Rapporteur through research, policy development, and the monitoring, evaluation, and reporting of strategies designed to prevent and reduce human trafficking in Jamaica. Ms. Morris plays a key role in the development of initiatives geared towards enabling survivors and vulnerable groups to understand their rights and the support service available to them in Jamaica. The development of sustainable innovation designed to teach users how human trafficking and the many ways in which it manifests, and monitors and reports on the nature and scope of human trafficking in Jamaica, including for the U.S. Department of State's Trafficking in Persons report. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology with a minor in Criminology and a Master of Science in Applied Psychology. She has years of experience playing various roles in the design, implementation, analysis, and reporting of data for various stakeholders. Over to you, Ms. Morris.
Thank you so much, Ms. Donna, for your warm welcome. I very much appreciate it. I always find it to be such a pleasure when I'm invited anywhere to come and share on this important topic that we call human trafficking. Let me see, am I displaying my screen? Are a person seeing it properly?
Yes, we're seeing your screen.
All right, beautiful. All right, awesome. Yes, so as I was saying, it's always a pleasure for me when I'm able to come and share on this important topic we call human trafficking. And even more so now that we're in the digital space, we're in the digital era, everybody's thinking internet, telephone devices, even more so now AI. So it's crucial that we kind of take a look at what exactly is happening in terms of cyber trafficking, or what is it that we're seeing in the cyberspace now. So my presentation, I'll give a brief overview of what I'll be discussing. I'll
Excuse me, sorry about that.
Sure, you can
Your
go ahead.
presentation is in presentation mode.
Yes, it's not showing.
So it's in mode that you are supposed to see, not us.
Let me let me come off that and see if I'm able to. Unless, all right, let me stop sharing just a bit. And then let me ensure that I'm sharing the correct thing. And thank you for that as well. Is it clear now? You're seeing everything?
Yes, this is good.
All right, beautiful. So I wanted to start by just giving an overview of what I plan to talk about today. Um, a lot of persons will ask, what is the ONR tip about? I'll share a little bit about us. I will share what exactly is happening globally in terms of human trafficking. So we're all on the same page as well. I'll share some definitions so we all can follow the terms that I would be using or referencing throughout. Then we get into the meat of the matter where cyber trafficking is concerned. What are the signs? What is it that you need to be looking out for? And of course, we can look at what the profile of the victim is looking like in Jamaica, the profile of the trafficker. We can look at some of the cases that we've convicted in Jamaica, and then I'll go into what exactly you can do. I'll share some tips as well as some of the resources that the Office of the National Rapporteur has available for you. So about us. Is it changing for you? You're seeing it now?
Yes,
All
we
is
just
good? All
yes.
right, beautiful. So it's the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, and we were established by the government of Jamaica to create an independent and objective reporting system on the issue of human trafficking in the country. So what exactly does that mean? So for human trafficking, the government wanted to provide an extra layer of monitoring and evaluation to this issue. So if it is that the government put forward a program to heighten awareness about human trafficking, our office can assess that program to see whether there are any gaps, and we can make direct recommendations to Parliament to plug those gaps. Or if it is that we see this program as being grand, it's something that we need to have in every parish, then we can make the recommendation for it to the relevant resources to be directed to that program so it can be expanded appropriately. We don't fall under a ministry if persons are searching. We were appointed or established by cabinet, and we just have that independent monitoring and evaluation mandate to assess what exactly is happening in the country re human trafficking and inform the relevant agencies as well as citizens of Jamaica so that they become aware and they're able to act appropriately to combat this type of crime. One of the things we're proud of as well in terms of our office is the fact that it's the first of its kind within the Caribbean region. So no other Caribbean territory, region within the world now, well, within the Caribbean, we're seeing this office. So it's the first of its kind. Jamaica continues to spearhead a lot of things, and we're very much proud of it. And it basically demonstrates the government's commitment to combating this issue. And of course, the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons is Mrs. Dan Gordon Harrison, who many of you would know as the Children's Advocate of Jamaica. So we share the same head. So she got the title, or she was appointed to the post of National Rapporteur in 2015, and the office officially got started in 2016. So in terms of scope, what exactly is happening globally in terms of human trafficking? This crime is recognized as the second largest criminal enterprise worldwide, and it's following closely behind drug trafficking. So, the International Labour Organization estimates that traffickers generate over 150 billion USD dollars, so US dollars annually in profits. That's profits alone. And that makes it one of the most lucrative. So here we can look at the the balance between supply and demand. So there must be a demand for this type of labor exploitation of persons for traffickers to find it attractive to ensure that they're getting the supplies to meet these demands. And one of the key things to note as well is that two of the main types of exploitation that we're seeing globally is that of sexual exploitation, which typically involves women and girls. And then forced labor is another type that is identified as being one of the most popular, and that typically involves men and boys. So, what exactly is human trafficking? Human trafficking is a crime that involves the exploitation of persons. And for it to be established and prosecuted effectively in court, we need to establish or identify three core components. We have the act, the means, and the purpose. So, the act. How is it that the traffickers are recruiting their victims? Are the victims being transported from one location to the other? Are they being transferred between individuals? Are they being harbored somewhere? I'll pause here because I wanted to make a clear distinction, or highlight a critical point, because it's a common misconception that persons have to be moved for trafficking to occur, and that's simply not the case. A person can be trafficked within their very own household, so they don't need to be transferred or transported across the border. They don't need to be transferred or transported through different parishes. You can literally be trafficked within your own household. So that's the act, the action. How is it that the trafficker is recruiting the persons? Next core component is the means. How is it that the trafficker is manipulating their victim? Is it that the trafficker is using threat? Was it the victim abducted? Did the trafficker use deception? Did they tell lies? Did the trafficker abuse their power of position? Is it somebody in a position of power and they're abusing the victim's position of vulnerability? And it is always, always for the third component, which is the purpose. And it's usually always, always for the purpose of exploitation. So that's three core components: act, means, purpose. There is, however, a slight distinction when we're thinking about the exploitation of adults as opposed to the exploitation of children, where adults, you have to show the three core components: act, means, purpose. For children, you only need to establish the act and the purpose. And this essentially is because children, they come with an extra level of vulnerability. A child cannot consent to their own exploitation. Due to age and maturity level, I'll be very clear in terms of even when you get up, you're going on a trip for it per se. You are at school and the school decides to take you on a trip outside of school. You will be receiving a consent form, and your parent has to give consent for you to go anywhere outside of school. So this is similar. You as a child cannot consent to say, I know if I go down the road, I'm going to be exploited or I'm going to be used, and the benefit may be to somebody else, or maybe I'll be getting something out of it. But at the end of the day, you as a child cannot consent to your own exploitation. So we don't necessarily need to show whether the trafficker had forced you, whether he had used lies, he or she had used lies, but we need to show how you or how the victim, that child victim, would have been recruited and for what purpose the child would have been exploited. So let's look into some of the types of trafficking we're seeing. As I had shared, globally, sexual exploitation is one of the most popular types. And as globally, it is local as well. Victims are typically women and girls for sexual exploitation. And a key thing to note here is that a trafficker is usually somebody that you're familiar with. So the trafficker can be a family member, a friend, a neighbor, an acquaintance. So it's usually somebody that the person is known. Another type is debt bondage. This is work exchange for a debt which ultimately can never be repaid. I'll give a practical example. Within our Jamaican context, a lot of times we hear persons are seeking opportunities to go abroad, and these opportunities are usually for work. A lot of persons would like to go and see if they can make a better life for themselves and their families. But when we think about the cost for airfare, the cost for getting prepared, when you reach over there, where you're going to stay, what you're going to eat, where you're going to get the work in the first place. So these are tricky situations where at the time, possibly you won't have the funds to even travel or know where you're going to stay, how you're going to provide for yourself before you're established enough to be sending funds back to your family. So sometimes we see cases where persons are um, offered opportunities. So you have somebody coming in a knight. Well, this person could be a knight in shining armor, you may say, and they come and they say, well, let me pay for everything. Let me cover everything. Once you reach over big foreign, you can work and repay me. But what we're seeing is that sometimes these don't often materialize the way we'd like it to. And we have cases where persons are working for years, years upon years, and they just simply can never repay the simple amount that they had borrowed to go over. So we're seeing that where persons are trapped in a situation where they're working and cannot repay a debt that is owed. There is domestic servitude as well. This is a tricky one because it typically occurs within the household, like a private household. So the victim is typically forced to work very long hours for little or no pay, little or no food, and in many cases, it is little or no breaks that they're taking. So let me give an example of how this may manifest. We know of tales and sometimes even cases where we have the children being sent from the country areas to the town areas for better opportunities. So you have some even family members who would say, send my niece come. I will take care of her. I'll send her to school, ensure she eats, I'll feed her, clothe her, and she'll be good. She'll get a better chance of making something of herself if she comes where I am. And sometimes parents may readily want better for their child and send them. But the situation isn't always as it seems because sometimes they may go and instead of being sent to school, they are made to work within the household. So these cases, as I said, are tricky. Sometimes we need little nosy neighbors who would peep over and see that this child, they get up as bright. As a matter of fact, before sun even come up, they're out washing, and when night come down, the washing done. Or these kids are the ones taking care of the other children, possibly a baby, and then it's a whole day situation where they are the ones designated to care for the child. So if the child wants to eat, them have to find food, them have to get up and clean, and they aren't provided their basic rights So rights to education, rights to fun. You have a right to play. So these are the things that we need to be looking out for. If it's something that's looking suspicious, a child who just never leaves the household, they're always stationed in the house and they work. That's all they have to do. They have to work and produce. All right. So other types of exploitation includes organ harvesting. So this one now is not so popular in Jamaica, or at least we haven't been identifying any cases. And this is where victims are sometimes easily coerced or deceived into giving up their organs in anticipation for receiving sizable amounts of money, which don't always materialize. So let me be clear. We have cases where you have persons who have it. You have persons on the wealthier side, and maybe one of their organs may be failing. So they need a kidney, and they may go through a third party, the trafficker in this case, to say, I am X type, I need X organ, and I want you to find somebody who would be willing to give up their organs to me for this amount of money. The trafficker might approach an individual and say, and these individuals are typically in poor circumstances. So possibly they have school fee to pay or they need to provide for their family. And they say, you can give up your organ. A kidney, you can live with one kidney, just give it, and you would get like a thousand or 100,000 US. And that's a sizable amount of money, enough money that. So persons will readily say, yes, let me do this. Because as I said, you can still go about your life with one kidney. And when we go through the process, you give up the one kidney, possibly you get a small amount of money, nothing as what you would have been expecting, or you simply don't get anything at all. So that's where the exploitation aspect of it, you're exploited for your organs, and whatever you had anticipated in the beginning, it is not what you're getting. Another type of exploitation is forced marriage. So this refers to situations where persons, regardless of their age, have been forced to marry without their individual and or collective consent. So this may manifest in a child being forced to marry into a family. This family may be of wealth, so you know it is the benefit to the family once you're in with that family. So that's something that we can look into as well or consider. And we have forced criminality. So this occurs when adults and children are forced to commit criminal activities. And in this case, we can think of a gang situation where the Don is sending for the kids, whether it be for sexual exploitation or even the babies. Sometimes the babies are pushed through grills to allow access to the Dons to a particular space. So we need to be watching out for these types of activities, and where they're identified or suspected, a report needs to be made. Right? So we go into the meat of the matter now. Cyber trafficking. What exactly is cyber trafficking? So this is a form of human trafficking that uses the internet and digital technologies to exploit victims. And as shared previously, it can be for any type of exploitation. However, it's usually sexual exploitation, the production of child pornography, forced labor, or any forms of abuse, right? What exactly do we look out for when we're thinking cyber trafficking? What are some of the warning signs we need to be acknowledging or taking note of? And we can look at it from two perspectives. I've divided. So we can look at it from the perpetrator's perspective. So the cyber trafficker may use fake ads Or they form romantic relationships to lure and recruit victims via online platforms. Let me give an example, read the fake ads. So we have teenagers now, a lot possibly just entering university or just coming out of school, and they want to take advantage of the work and travel program. We have quite a number of fake ads sometimes running where you sign up with a program that you've identified online and you send all your money, and at the end of the day, you're not seeing anything materializing. So at some point, you make some checks and realize that this page is fake. So that's a fake ad that you're exploited through financially. They took your money and you don't get anything. Or you have cases where persons, that's a trafficker, take the time to build relationships with children. They take the time to build these relationships, groom the child, lure them. So, for instance, maybe you don't have a phone and you confide in this person who you believe is your friend that you need this phone, and they say, yes, man, we can't have an extra phone, or let me buy you one, but you have to come for it. And that's how a lot of persons are recruited. So you have to be careful, be mindful that not everything that presents on the internet is real or true. Sometimes we have persons with ill intentions that really want to do harm, and they go above and beyond to get your attention and get your focus, just to get you to where they are and exploit you. So be careful of the types of ads and the types of relationships you're forming. Some things that traffickers might also do, they request private information, such as your personal details. They request images as well under deceptive reasons and then exploit whomever is sending these images. So let me give a practical example of how this might unfold. So, as I said, traffickers, they'll take the time that is necessary to get what they want. Very patient. And if it is going to take weeks or months or possibly even a year that we're speaking online and we're developing this relationship for me, you to know, form a bond with me, and you are now comfortable in sharing, or we've reached the stage now where we're sharing and exposing certain things about ourselves, then it's even more easier for you to start having certain conversations or sharing certain content. But you have to be careful. As I said, not everything that presents on the internet is as it is. And once it is that you're feeling uncomfortable or you find yourself oversharing, then it's a cause for concern. Probably you need to take a step back and assess the situation or consult with somebody you trust as well, right? So you may be in this relationship, as you might call it, whether it be friendship or something romantic, and you end up send a nude photo to this individual. And it's so easy now, having gotten that photo, for the person to say, well, you have to send me videos this time, or I'm going to distribute that photo to your family and your friends. So that's where we're getting into the use of threat, or possibly you're being blackmailed now to perform other acts on yourself online. And these can be live streamed, or there is further content that can be collected for like child pornography. So we need to be careful of what we're sharing. Um, a trafficker may groom a child by befriending them. As I said, sometimes it takes quite a bit of time, but they have the time. Remember, we spoke about I talked about the demand versus the supply. So there is the demand for these types of content, and it's attractive for the traffickers now to try and get the supply to meet these demands. So be mindful of these things, and they'll groom by befriending you, establishing the relationship, and then exploiting you. And we are seeing where traffickers prey upon individuals with low self-esteem. You might come and share that you're feeling lonely, or your home situation is unstable. Possibly you don't have that good relationship with your parents or another family member. So the home is unstable. You can't confide in persons at your home, but you have chosen to come now on the internet to see if you can find that love or attention that you're seeking. So traffickers prey on these types of individuals. So be mindful. If it is that you don't find or you find it difficult to speak to somebody within your own household, find another trusted source. Whether it be the guidance counselor, or if you're in church, you go to your pastor, just find somebody who you can confide in, right? From the victim's perspective, know what are the signs that we commonly look for. The victim may have limited control over their online activity, including how they communicate with other persons or manage their digital presence. So, as I had shared in a previous example, you possibly had already shared some form of content, and now you're being forced to either participate in some conversations that you don't want to do, or some activities that you don't want to do, or participate in a number of things that may make you feel uncomfortable. So if this is the case and you know of somebody who may have overshared, it is important that you report the activity, bring it to the attention of somebody you trust, because it's not going to get any better. It's only going to, it's almost like you're feeding a wound that is only festering further. Speak to somebody who you trust. Victims may be exploited financially, as I had shared in a previous example, the online scams, through fraudulent schemes or deceptive practices. The victim may be forced to participate in sexual activities online, and these, as I shared, could be live streamed, or it is further content that the trafficker may collect, for instance, like child pornography or images that can be sold to possibly even the highest bidder. Victims also tend to isolate themselves from their friends and family. So if you see that your friend is usually very bubbly, very happy, but no, they're more so withdrawn. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to go anywhere. They don't want to talk. Then it's a cause for concern. And victims may be engaged in online relationships that seem too good to be true. So, and again, if it seems too good to be true, it usually is. It usually is. Something is off. It's something that you need to consider going forward, as to how you're going to be addressing these online relationships that are being formed, whether it be friendship or something romantic. You have to be careful. You can imagine, as a young girl, you're so excited, run, go home, and you want to speak to this individual who you've been speaking with for years, or maybe you want to know visit, but at the end of the day, the person that is behind the screen is not either the friend that you think, the other female friend, or the cute guy that you've been engaging with, but it's some big tough old man. So you have to be careful. Be careful of what you're sharing. Be careful of who you're engaging online and how you're engaging. So some of the common emojis that are used by cyber traffickers. If you're looking at the screen, we have like the cherry. The cherry is usually representing virgin. We have this umbrella with the little raindrops. That's condom use. Sometimes it's the snowflake for drug use. And we know, well, most persons may know the eggplant and possibly the peach. So once you realize that the conversation is going into an area where you're feeling uncomfortable, or it's not something that you had initially intended, then you probably have to just take a step back and reassess. Come again, this is not what I wanted, and be firm about it. Or speak to a trusted source. Speak to somebody who can best advise you how you may go about this relationship that you're forming. All right, so let's get into what exactly is happening in Jamaica. Because a lot of persons you may ask, do you think human trafficking is occurring in Jamaica? And they said, no, it's just the movies, them something international. Just abroad, you see them something there. But that's not the case. It is very real. It is very rampant in Jamaica now. And let me just share what exactly we're identifying. What is it that we're seeing? So in Jamaica, we're primarily identifying females trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation, while males are more often exploited for labor. And as I had shared globally, so is seen locally. And we're finding that a significant number of our victims that are identified in Jamaica are between the ages of 11 and 17 years. They're often from low income background families, and they're typically in school or unemployed at the time of recruitment. So, getting into some statistics now, between the period 2020 to June of 2025, so June of this year, the government has identified 56 victims. And of the 56, 80.4% were children. And let that sink in. 80.4% of the victims that have been identified in Jamaica have been children, while 19.6% were adults. So we're seeing where traffickers are targeting our children, are targeting the kids. And this may be for varying reasons. Children are more susceptible to certain things, or um, persons may be more likely to report on a case where a child is being exploited as opposed to an adult. But in any case or in any circumstance where you find that you suspect that somebody is being exploited in whatever way and for whatever reason or purpose, it is important that this is reported so that they can get the relevant help that is needed. So I'll, I wanted to break it down for you so it's clearer and you can actually see what the numbers are looking like. And we are seeing in 2020, that's January to December, of the 8 victims that were identified, 7 of them were children. In 2021, that's between April to December, 10 persons identified, sorry, 6 of which were children. In 2022, 11 victims identified, all 11 were children. 2023, 13 victims identified, 7 children. 2024, 10 victims identified, all of which were children. And as of June this year, the 4 victims that have been identified, all have been children. So the children now are being targeted, they're being preyed upon, and they're lured, sometimes recruited, if even in cases possibly abducted, and they're being exploited. So the types of exploitation, what exactly are we seeing in Jamaica? So of those 56, we have 73.2% being trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation. 25% were trafficked for labor exploitation, and we had 1 victim experiencing both sexual and labor exploitation. So that's the victim. Now let's go into what the trafficker is looking like. What is the profile of the trafficker? So men are identified. Let's see, I have two identified, my apologies, but they're mainly identified as the main perpetrators for human trafficking. However, we're seeing where females are gradually assuming a more dominant role in the process, right? So Jamaica has achieved 17 convictions thus far between the periods 2008 to 2025. And these cases involved 11 adult males and 6 adult females being convicted. We're going down to some of the actual cases that have taken place in Jamaica, and we're seeing like the cyber trafficking component, or where the internet or digital technologies have been manipulated in these cases. I'll bring them to your attention. So this now is a Jamaican male. He ended up recruiting an underage victims. Well, he recruited underage victims and forced them to beg. While this one per se may not have had the cyber trafficking component, I'd like to share a little bit about this case because it's so important that we need to remain vigilant at all times. So this gentleman now, he dressed up as a football coach. He's not. He went onto a school campus that he's not associated with. He distributed flyers advertising this weekend football camp that he's hosting, and he got the parents to provide permission for their children to come and join this weekend camp, and they paid the fees. But instead of going to the football camp or executing that football camp, he took the children and had them in various parishes begging. So, you would see the kids sometimes they have a good initiative that they want persons to support. So they had the forms and they were placed at select locations to beg, and the proceeds were collected by that individual. And I'll know them as in a football camp me there. So it is a parent, who got concerned when he brought them back at a late hour. She contacted the school, and the school said, we don't know him, we don't know nothing about him, and he's not affiliated with the school. So can you imagine now where the parents have been dropping off their children, not knowing that they're being forced to beg around the parishes of Jamaica, and anything and possibly everything could have been happening to them. So we need to be more vigilant. We need to ask more questions. He ended up getting 2 years on each count. So it was 11 boys, and that run concurrently. So if it didn't run concurrently, he would have gotten 22 years. But because it ran concurrently, he only got 2 years. This now is another Jamaican male. He ended up luring an underage victim, and he exploited her sexually. So in cases like these, sometimes the person would be using like Facebook or Instagram. They're using X, formerly, well, Twitter, which is formerly, well, X now, formerly known as Twitter, to lure their victims and get them into a position where they can be exploited. He got 5 years imprisonment at hard labor, and he was convicted in 2019. This is another male now. He was convicted recently in 2023. He recruited and exploited an underage girl to produce pornographic materials. So as I said, sometimes they're recruiting these individuals for varying purposes. His purpose now was to capture the content that is being produced. So she was forced to have sex with multiple men, and it's recorded, and the content is sold online. He got 6 years and 9 months in prison at hard labor. This is another Jamaican man. He was convicted in 2020 and he tricked an underage girl and exploited her sexually. He got 9 years imprisonment and he was also ordered to pay restitution. So, restitution is an amount that you want to give the victim. Um, their lives have been disrupted, and this is almost like compensation to try and kind of plug that gap they had experienced while going through this negative situation. And as you can see, this isn't a lot at all. Um, there are varying reasons as to why the restitution amount would be so low. Um, it depends on the discretion of the judge, or even in terms of the whole idea that human trafficking is so new to a lot of persons. So they're still working their way around it, right? As I had shared before, we have females now coming forward as the main perpetrators of human trafficking. This here is a Jamaican female. She was convicted in 2014. And what she did was to force an underage girl to work in her bar, and she refused to pay her. So she got 2 years imprisonment. Another female, she was convicted in 2018. And what she did was to lure an underage victim and exploited her sexually. She got 4 years and 5 months imprisonment. We have couples featuring as traffickers. This is a man and his wife. It's an Indian male and a Jamaican female. They're married, and they were found guilty of human trafficking and forced domestic labor. The man got 10 years imprisonment. They were ordered to pay US dollars 18,337 in restitution to the victim, and the female was required to pay a fine of $1 million. She also got a 3 year suspended sentence. So she didn't serve any jail time, but she got 3 years. So if she does any crime within that 3 years, she go into prison. And another couple now, again, husband and wife. They were convicted in 2021, and they recruited and sexually exploited an underage girl. The female, she was the main victim in this case, sorry, main perpetrator. And she was fined $2 million, and the male was fined $800,000. So when we look at those profiles, we're thinking, now, who are the victim as you see it? Anyone can be a victim, but we're mainly seeing children being particularly vulnerable based on their age. Women and girls still show as the common victims for sexual exploitation, while men and boys are victims of forced labor. In Jamaica, we're primarily identifying Jamaicans. However, we do have other nationalities coming forward or being identified as victims. We have Indian nationals, Chinese, Haitians, Colombians. When we look at who the traffickers are, anyone can be a trafficker, whether it be a man or a woman. Traffickers are typically Jamaicans. However, data shows that we've identified Indian nationals and someone from Panama. Oh, I thought you were following. All right, so what exactly are the new trends we're seeing? So there, in recent times, we have been noticing that there has been a rise in familial trafficking, whereby parents and guardians are suspected of exploiting their children for financial gain. In fact, I'll share two cases quickly because I see the time is running. The latest conviction that we had involved a male who exploited his daughter and stepdaughter sexually. He ended up getting 33 years and 8 months imprisonment. There was also a case that I'd like to recall for us to just be aware of. This involved two women who were identified in a baby rental scheme. So they rented the babies from their mothers, took them to a different parish, and got stationed outside like the ATM machines. So, you know, if you have a baby in hand, it's more likely that you'll be getting more money from persons who may be more sympathetic to your situation. So somebody realized that they were out there whole day. They called the police, and it turned out that they weren't even related to the children. So unfortunately, that case wasn't prosecuted under the Trafficking in Persons Act. It went on the Child Protection Act. But we do recognize that as a missed opportunity because those children were exploited. We're also seeing where children are increasingly being targeted, groomed, and recruited by traffickers through online platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, X, Snapchat, WhatsApp, and TikTok. So, what is it that you can do? Become aware. Know the warning signs of cyber trafficking. And we had listed them before. Just become aware. Know and share what you've learned today. Beware of strange friend requests. Remember, not everybody on the internet is your friend. You have to be careful of those friendships that you're accepting and the type of persons that you're allowing to get to know you and get into your life. Do not overshare. Sometimes we're seeing too much content about an individual. You share your name, you share your date of birth, you share your address. If you're going to the movies, you share the location as you're at the movies. So that's very dangerous. And remember, I had shared most of the times persons are exploited, it's by somebody they know. So, for instance, a family friend may see that you're at the movies now, and they run come and say, "Oh, mom, your mommy said that I must pick you up." And you know, unless your parents force it into you to say, do not go anywhere with anybody if I did not tell you to go anywhere. It is more believable for a family friend to run and come and say, your mommy sent me to collect you, and you're more likely in some cases to go, but you don't know their intentions. And if you see anything that is suspicious, just report it. You don't need to know everything. Once it doesn't look right to you, report it. Um, get help as well. Raise the alarm. If it is that you found yourself in a situation where you are now confronted with certain demands online, report it. There are legislations now out for persons who are sharing pornographic materials, sharing certain contents online. They can be prosecuted. You can get assistance. Don't sit down and wither away. Help is available. What else can you do? So if you believe you are or you suspect that you recognize a victim of cyber trafficking, you can do the following. Please do not confront the suspected trafficker. This is a very dangerous territory to venture in. Remember, I had shared human trafficking is the second largest criminal enterprise worldwide. We have persons demanding certain services, and you have desperate individuals who are going out of their way to get the supplies to meet these demands. So it can be very dangerous for you to know either make arrangements to meet somebody to confront them to get back the content they have of you. Don't do it. Report it. Report the matter to the police. You don't need to know everything or every single details or be convinced that you're right about everything. The police will do their investigation. Whatever they need from you, they'll get it, and they will conduct whatever investigation they need to do. And rest assured that the victim that is identified will be supported based on their individual needs. I had shared as well, you can speak to a trusted source. We have even the Office of the Children's Advocate has a sister branch called Safe Spot, and Safe Spot allows teens, children to reach out via telephone, WhatsApp, and share their concerns. There is also counseling that is available through that service. You may also make a report through any of the following means: 119 811 311, and or you can contact us as well, the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons. I'll share our contact details below. We do have certain resources as well that you might find very useful if you have an interest in learning more about human trafficking. We have our online human trafficking resource library. It's free of cost, open source. Once you have you're doing some form of research or you need more information, it houses information identified locally, regionally, internationally, and that can be accessed through JamaicaONRTIP.com. We also have an anti-trafficking awareness course that you can take by visiting our website, onrtip.gov.jm. You'll be able to complete the course. And as I said, free of cost. And once completed successfully, you're able to retrieve your certificate. And our contact details are as presented here. Once you have any concerns, it's so important that you voice those concerns, get the help that is needed. Do it today. It's so critical, very, very crucial. Because a lot of persons who are victims don't often self-identify as victims, so they don't know that they're being trafficked. And it is important that if we know of information or we're suspecting something, it's best to report it. And we have very active social media pages. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and we post regularly, regular content. And I am open to any questions if they are available. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Morris, for such an
Most welcome.
engaging and information presentation. Is there any questions? You are free to type in the chat or open your mic.
While persons are thinking through, something just popped up in mind. I just wanted to share as well. Remember, we're in the age of AI. AI is very deceptive in terms of the level of manipulation persons may use to get your interest or even pull you. So, for instance, you sit down and you talk to somebody and that person possibly isn't even real. So we need to be aware of these types of programs, sometimes even how it manifests. And once you're feeling uncomfortable, best just report. Speak to somebody you trust so you can get the level of assistance or whatever you need to work through this issue you may be plagued with. Well, any questions for me?
Okay,
Please free,
there's
open.
a question from Peter Gay Markland. It said, what can parents do to safeguard against exploitation? What can parents do to safeguard against exploitation?
So parents know they have to play this very, very important role. A lot of children we're finding sometimes have found themselves in some situations which could have been avoided, but we're here at this point. It is important that you speak to your child. As a parent, speak to your child. children have so many questions these days. Sometimes the questions are very intense. Some persons might find, but it's so important that you respond as best as you can. Try to be your child's comfort in terms of if it is that they need some form of information. If you don't know it, you, the adult, need to get in, either become aware yourself or both of you take a trip to somebody who may know of the information and ensure that you're getting appropriate advice where certain things are concerned. Parents may also monitor their children's activities online and monitor not to snoop, but just to ensure that we're aware of what exactly is happening in your child's life. You can have conversations. So for instance, I can go home now and I say, Nana, how has your day been? Speaking to my daughter, she's 5. And I'm telling you, she's going to give me the rundown as to every single thing that took place. So it's just to create that space where you're able to have trust and have that type of relationship with your child. You can also flag certain things. There are different programs that are available for persons now. Parents can either cut short the screen time. You can stay where you are and just shut it down. If it's YouTube, the child is usually on, they can give them some time and then shut it down. And as I said, it's to have that active engagement in conversation, know what your child is doing online, and be ready. Just if it is that you don't have information, as I said, go to a trusted source and get the information so you and your child are aware and know what you can do.
Okay, we have another question from Godfrey Sterling. How would you advise parents who are of the view that they are incapable of dealing with their troubled preteen and teenager given the rush of missing person in that age group?
I like that question. Thank you so much, Mr. Sterling. What I'd say is that you can get assistance. It is, if it is that you feel overwhelmed or you're uncertain, I think the best approach is that you could reach out to the different resources that are available to you. So, for instance, the ONR tip, we can come and share, we can speak on the topic, share our resources with you so you're better able or now guided to best address this issue that you think is plaguing the society or that is plaguing the society. We have quite a bit of missing children as well, but one of the things that don't often get reported, possibly based on the excitement of the child coming back, but the numbers of children returning are usually higher than that is reported. So you do have kids that go missing for whatever reason, but in the excitement or the enjoyment of them coming back, that isn't often reported. So help can be provided. Help is available. It's just for parents who may feel overwhelmed at the time to just seek out the assistance that they require. And we have variant support services all around. If it is that the child know who has been deemed troubled needs some additional support, if it's counseling, we can get that child the assistance they require. It's just to reach out for help. You don't need to sit down and wither away in the sorrows. Um, just reach out, speak to somebody you trust and get the assistance that you need. Excuse me.
Thank you for that, Miss Morris. That was well.
Most welcome.
So I'm not seeing any more questions, and we have reached that time. It's 12:02. So we sincerely thank you again, Miss Morris, for sharing your expertise and helping us better understand the fight against human trafficking in Jamaica. Your insight given was really, really clear and how we can protect ourselves. We also appreciate the resources you have shared to help us stay informed. On
You
behalf of the Cyber Incident Response Team Division, thank you once again all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at our next session as we continue to strengthen Jamaica cybersecurity awareness and resilience.
all right. Thank you so much, and you're most welcome.